All right, let's dive right in. Today, we're zoning in on one of the most critical parts of the ISO 55001 standard for asset management, Clause 5. It's all about leadership. And we're going to see exactly why this single clause is considered the absolute cornerstone of any asset management system that actually works.
So let's kick things off with a really big question. How do you take asset management and stop people from seeing it as just a drain on the budget and instead turn it into something that genuinely drives value for the whole organization? You know, the answer is surprisingly simple.
Yep, it all starts at the top. It's not about the fancy software, it's not about the detailed processes. Not at first, anyway. According to ISO 55001, if you want real transformation, it has to be a top-down initiative. It's got to be driven by leadership. Period. So what does this top-down approach actually look like? Well, we're going to walk through it. We'll see how it all begins with top management's commitment, which then gets baked into a formal policy. From there, it's all about assigning roles and responsibilities, all with one big goal in mind, turning this from a compliance chore into a core part of the company culture.
Okay, first up, Clause 5.1. Now, the standard is super explicit here. Leadership isn't just a title you hold. It's an active, demonstrable commitment. Top management can't just sign off on a budget and then disappear. They have to be seen, they have to be involved, they have to lead from the front.
The standard actually lists out 10 specific things leadership has to do. But to make this a little easier to digest, we can group them into 3 main themes. It's all about strategic alignment, active support, and driving improvement. Let's break each of those down.
So, this first theme, think of leadership as being the system's architect. They're the ones responsible for making sure the asset management policy and its goals actually line up with where the whole company is trying to go. This means weaving it into the day-to-day business processes, setting up clear rules for making decisions, and of course, giving the formal thumbs up on those key documents, like the Asset Management Policy and the Strategic Asset Management Plan, or SAM.
Now, once that blueprint is drawn up, leaders have to become its biggest champions. This is the active support part. They've got to make sure the system has the resources it needs. The right people, the right funding, the right tools. They have to constantly communicate why this stuff matters, guide their teams so they can actually contribute, and, this is a big one, support other managers so they can be leaders in their own departments too.
And finally, leadership is on the hook for the results. It's their job, flat out, to make sure the system is actually doing what it's supposed to do. But it's not a one-and-done deal. They also have to actively build a culture where everyone is always looking for ways to make things better, making sure the system grows and improves over time.
This leads us perfectly into Clause 5.2. So if leadership's commitment is the foundation of the house, then the asset management policy, well, that's the master blueprint for the entire structure, and it's a document that top management has to create.
And seriously, thinking of it as a blueprint is the best way to understand it. The asset management policy is that formal, written-down framework that guides every single decision, every plan, and every action that comes after it. It's the company's official mission statement for how it's going to manage its assets. And this blueprint has to be built on 5 solid principles. It's got to make sense for the organization, it has to provide a clear structure for setting goals, and it needs to include solid commitments to meeting requirements and always getting better. And, crucially, it has to play nice with other company policies, making sure asset management doesn't end up on its own little island.
I mean, what good is a blueprint if it's locked away in a drawer where the builders can't see it? It's useless, right? That's why the standard demands that the policy has to be documented, it has to be communicated clearly to everybody inside the organization, and it even needs to be available to outside stakeholders when it makes sense. Everyone needs to be working from the same plan.
So we've got the leadership commitment, we've got the blueprint, now we need the team to actually build the thing. This brings us right to Clause 5.3, which is all about defining who does what and empowering people to get the job done.
And the language in the standard here is crystal clear. There's no wiggle room. Top management must ensure that roles and responsibilities are not only assigned but also communicated. This is not a suggestion. Getting this right is what prevents chaos, creates real accountability, and makes sure the system actually works the way it was designed.
And within this, the standard actually calls out 2 super critical jobs that top management absolutely has to assign to someone. First, somebody's got to be in charge of making sure the whole system actually conforms to the ISO 55001 standard. And second, someone else needs to be responsible for reporting on how the assets and the system are performing, reporting that info back up to the top. So think of it like this. One role makes sure the system is built right, and the other role gives leadership the dashboard to steer.
So when you pull all these pieces together, you see this clear path forward. But the real goal here, the ultimate endgame for leadership, isn't just to get a certificate to hang on the wall. It's about moving beyond just checking a box and building a real, living culture where managing assets for value is just how things get done around here.
And this is the final test right here. A direct quote from the standard sums it all up perfectly. At the end of the day, all of this work, the policy, the roles, the commitment, it all comes down to one simple question. Does the system actually deliver the results it was supposed to? For leadership, that's the bottom line. That's the only measure of success that truly matters.
Which brings us to one last question for you to think about. When you look at your own organization, what do you see? Is leadership's approach to asset management about just checking a box to stay compliant? Or is there a genuine top-down fire to build and deliver real sustainable value? Because the answer to that question, well, it changes everything.